Well, hello everybody out there and in here. So we are here at week 9 of the course. Only got a couple of weeks left, and things are finishing up. We've got some really exciting stuff here at the end. In particular, we're going to be learning about Android development, in addition to doing some more mob slash ensemble programming. So tonight, there's three things. I'm going to start off with Prime Minister's questions. Then we're going to spend, I don't know, an hour and a half or so looking at Android development. And then we'll spend the rest of the time on a mob programming kata for a reverse Polish notation calculator. So lots of good stuff tonight. But to get started, what questions do you have? Project 5 is due tonight. Oh, the final exam. I prefer to talk about that next week. I guess I will say is that, just in brief, the final exam is in 2 parts. The second part is a group project and a group effort, and the first part is some short answer questions. Basically, it's like 2 quizzes put together. I'll say the same thing next week, go into a tiny bit more detail, but I know people are curious about it. It's not the kind of thing you can really study for. Well, actually, no, I guess it is the kind of thing you can study for. Just go back and review, the stuff that we've covered. But it's it's only worth whatever it is, 12% of your grade. So in the grand scheme of things, it's probably better to focus on your projects than it is to spend a lot of time trying to remember all the stuff that you probably already learned or maybe forgotten by now from the beginning of the course. Um, how was Project 5, or how is Project 5? I think there's some people who still have it in progress. What are some of any questions that are still on people's minds about Project 5? Oh, very satisfying to get it to work. Thanks, Max. Yeah, I bet it is. Oh, Makito. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely different. And yeah, I mean, sort of like by now we're into the advanced part of advanced, advanced programming, things you probably haven't seen before, and things that were definitely not covered in your lower division classes and stuff. Good, yeah. I hope that you all got a chance to use Makito enough. I'm sure some people dove right into it, and other people just got enough to work that they could get their tests to pass, and that's okay because it's pretty advanced stuff. Let's see here. Host import other than localhost 8080 stucks the program. Shiroshi, can you say more about what we mean?
When I was using look other than I some random 4 numbers of space by dots like a valid IP address and some 8080 port or something. So it was trying to access, but it was not accessible. So maybe the program was stuck. Means it was trying to access and taking a long time. So I don't know how what we were supposed to do. So in
Well,
that case.
yeah, localhost and port 8080 refer to the host and port that the server is running on. So if you were running the server on a different machine, you would connect to it on via its via the domain name of that machine. And the same thing with the port. Now you can configure Jetty. I think it was in the assignment to run on a different port. And actually, when I grade your projects, I won't be using 8080. I'll be using some other random port because because someone might be using 8080 on the PSU Linux machines for something else. Excuse me. So then, does that explain what you were seeing? The fact that there just wasn't a server running on the host and port that you did provide?
Yeah, I was giving wrong input, so that it gives some errors. But for something like if I'm giving a alphabets port, then it's perfectly fine. It's giving error. But if it's a valid IP address and a number, not exactly valid, I don't know if that exists or not, but that gets stuck.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Good deal.
program is not breaking at that point. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, if you want to follow, if there's more to follow up with me, we can certainly do so after class. But yeah, interesting. Good deal. Any other observations of Project 5 or questions about Project 5 that you'd like to share? Cool. Okay. That was an easy one. So then, project 6. So I want to talk about the project. Then we will transition to working with Android Studio. But just a program note, here in class, I'm not going to take the time to go through the installation and setup of Android Studio. I put together a video over the weekend. I shared it on the general channel. I hope many of you went through that process before tonight. That way you can play along at home, or at least have a little better context of what you're seeing. So, Project 6. Project 6 is the culmination of the airline application. Your final project will be all about building an Android application, a small device application for an airline. This is worth 14 points. This is a big one, and so then it's worth a lot, and you've got 3 weeks to work on it. Rather, it's due in 3 weeks from tonight. Yeah, today's no, that's well, yeah, it's due the last day. It is due 2 weeks. 1 week, 2 weeks. Yep. Okay. So then, anyway, what you'll do is we'll implement an Android app that provides the functionality of your airline application. And so then the reason we're doing this is to really go beyond command line, go beyond a REST API to have something that looks like a really modern application. So something that would run on a handheld device. So basically, it has all the functionality of the previous assignments. Your app will be able to create an airline, enter flights, have a pretty print, and please use Android version of pretty. You can use text, I suppose, but it still needs to look good on a small device. Searching for flights, etc. Do note that you do not need to leverage the REST API that you built in Project 5. You don't need to have a servlet or whatever. It's all self-contained in the Android application. So, but really, that's it. A big part of this assignment is to be creative in terms of what you think makes a usable application. Just the same way that your pretty output was graded on aesthetics or the ability to read it. I'll be assessing the usability of your app. I'm doing the grading on this one, and I think that my bar for usability is pretty low. Basically, it's like, hey, if I can figure out how to put stuff in there, that's great. But if I get confused or frustrated or it takes me too long, then I might take off a little bit of points. As we'll learn about Android, or actually, I hope we've learned. I hope you've watched the lecture, and so Android applications have something called an entry point. That is where the application code begins. It's like a main method, or like when you launch your servlet. It's a nice combination of both. It's kind of like the servlet in that you have a class that is instantiated, and like, okay, here's your application. And then as the user interacts with the app, your code is invoked. But basically, what your UI should have is the ability to interact with the app. Also, a help menu or a help button or something like that, and that's where your README lives. So there's still a README, but it's not a command line option anymore. It's something that you interact with, that you get to by interacting with the program. Error handling is still a thing. You make sure to check your input to make sure that it's right. But there is a log. We don't write to the log. I'm not going to look at the log. Instead, if something is wrong, pop up a dialog box. And make sure that the dialog box or the toast or whatever it is that you use, it only has a small piece of information. Don't print out don't use a toast or a dialog for things like the pretty version of your airlines. They're meant for small pieces of information. There are text fields and things like that you should use, or text boxes that you should use for displaying bigger pieces of text. So again, this project is about learning about Android, about exploring what's there in terms of different widgets and the APIs and what you can use. So please be creative, and I hope this is a fun project for you all, although it's work and quite a bit of it. Oh, note that the submission process is well, the submission process is the same, but it's a little different. So you can't run Android Studio on the PSU Linux boxes. However, that's sort of like where the whole submittal infrastructure works. So so please keep your source code in your GitHub repository, and when you're ready to submit, go to log on to the PSU machines, pull down the latest changes, and run the submit script like you would normally. As we'll see, Android applications aren't built with Maven. I don't believe the submit script actually runs the Gradle clean. Right? Actually, no, I know it doesn't because it won't work because it doesn't have all the right tools. So the submission process is just a little different. And note that what is submitted is all of the files. So XML files and icons and everything like that. That'll all get submitted, so you don't have the same restrictions on what's submitted as you did in the first projects. And again, even though you have to submit your code from the CS Department's Linux machines, you can't run the code on the machine. The emulator software isn't there, and you wouldn't want to do it over a remote environment anyway. So that means that I grade things in my own environment using the emulator that we'll be seeing here tonight. So as I went over in in that video, and by the way, I posted the video to the general channel, and it's also on the website under this week, I believe. Oops. Yes. So even though we're here in the middle of class, there's a screencast part 1, and then it's like a half an hour of getting started with Android. It sounds just like me. Oh, except I was on my headset, so I'm a little more dulcet. So please be sure to watch that if you haven't already. Or you can just follow the instructions on developer.android.com and to get started. So important things to note, we'll be using the Pixel 5 API 33 emulator. And so that's what I'll be using, that's what I'll be grading it on. So I encourage you to use the same and in your development environment so that we know that all the code will work on both. When setting up Android Studio, especially people running on Windows, there might be a couple of extra steps that you didn't see in my video. I encourage you all to share your experiences in the Project 6 channel on Slack, especially if you get stuck or if there's something that's working. This is actually the first term that I've used this particular emulator. The emulator I used was kind of getting old, and so I'll use this one instead. But please speak up if things aren't working, or if you can't install Android Studio, or if the emulator isn't working for you. The project is the code project is completely different, and just like just like in Project 5, please copy the code that you need. You'll need your airline, your flight, and your XML dumper, and all that kind of stuff. Please copy that into into the Android project source code. And we'll see tonight that there is a step that we need to do in order to use my classes in your Android project. And basically you need to add this line to the build.gradle. Now, in terms of in addition to the functionality that I mentioned earlier, the data in your app should survive after the app is killed or another app is launched. So unlike, say, your servlet, where you didn't have to persist the data out to disk, here you do. And so I encourage you to look at this internal storage API that Android has for a mechanism for persisting your airline. And I guess you can use XML or text. I don't really care. But it does need to be persisted. Now, I'm not going to run your code inside Android Studio. Instead, I am going to build it from the command line. And so here are the command line invocations that I'm going to use. And I encourage you to make sure that those work before you submit. And again, you have to make sure that these work on your local machine because you're submitting from the PSU machine, and you can't run Android stuff on the PSU machines. So let's see here. So please do a Gradle W clean, Gradle W build. Gradle is like Maven. We'll see it in a few minutes. And make sure that they run locally without error. And then what I'll use is this particular command line here. I'm going to turn off all the linting. I'm not going to require you to get to clean all the lint steps um, there. So I was going to make sure it builds. And then I will, then that will deploy it to the emulator. Actually, well, sorry, I'll deploy it to the emulator using Grail W install debug. And here is the emulator that I'll be running. Again, it's Pixel 5 API 13. And then I'll run yours in the emulator. I'll put it through its paces, do some test cases, and then I will run Grail W uninstall all to remove your application from the emulator. So the reason I'm telling you all this is because I want to, if you want to make sure that everything works, run these commands, and that'll give you a pretty good indication that everything's solid and ready to go. And that's it. So again, I'm not being terribly prescriptive about what your UI looks like or how you've structured things. Part of the assignment is to do something that you believe is usable and figure out how to do that. Just make sure that it has the same functionality as the other projects in terms of managing an airline. Any questions about the requirements for Project 6 for the Android app? Okay. Quit IntelliJ to save memory on my machine. So now we're going to go through an exercise where we do a little bit of Android development. So I'm going to run Android Studio. So Android Studio is it's a modified version of IntelliJ that is customized and optimized for developing Android applications. And so the nice thing is that if you're familiar with IntelliJ, and you are by now, you have something that looks, you have a development environment that looks very familiar. The keyboard shortcuts are the same. Things are arranged in the same place. So you should be used to that. Plus, so it's got like all the IntelliJ stuff, plus it's got a bunch of additional things for developing Android applications. And those are the kinds of things we're going to see tonight. So where we got to in the video is that, hey, we installed all this stuff. In addition to Android Studio, you also need to install the Android SDK, so the software development kit, which is all the Android tools. We'll get those in the lecture. And then you need to install an emulator. Again, oops, the emulator is hard to see because of Zoom. It's the Google Pixel 5 API 33. And so now I'm going to run the app on the emulator. I've configured my emulator to pop out. It works better on my small laptop screen. And this is a phone emulator. So actually, it looks like a phone. Now, my experience during the video is that things took a little while to start up. So we'll see. Hopefully that's not too slow tonight. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with this emulator, and it doesn't surprise me that newer phones use more resources, and so they therefore are a little bit slower on my super old machine. So basically what I'm doing is I'm starting up the emulator, and then Android Studio will build the project and deploy, for lack of a better word, install the app that is built onto the emulator, onto the phone, and then launch everything. You can see some of the stuff going on in that window. Make it a little smaller so you can see it. Oops. So this is just debugging output from the tools that build the application and deploy it to the phone. You might see a bunch of warnings, even some errors go by. It's not surprising. I mean, there's lots of software running on the phone, and sometimes things go wrong. It's not part of your grade. Of course, if the app crashes, yes, but if there are errors that speed out in the background, first of all, I'm not going to look at them. So don't worry or get freaked out if you see a little bit of red going by. Whew. This is taking its time. And there's a fan on my machine working a little hard. Anything else I'm going to check out in stock? Let's see if it is on, right? I wonder if I shut it off like that. Yeah, oh yeah. Always helps to turn the emulator on. Sorry. Oh man, do I feel dumb. Okay. Unplugging in, plugging back in, sir. Okay, thanks. Okay, anyway, here is our hello world. Actually, it's really hard to see. It's very small. Here is our Hello World app here on our phone. And as I showed in the video, this is a phone. And so it doesn't have the traditional 3 buttons, but you do have emulated buttons. So you can go to the overview screen. Let's go back. There we go. And so then you can throw apps like this, and then I'll bring it back to the home screen. You can launch Google and Gmail. There are some built-in apps, and then actually, where is our? Oops, there it is. Yep, and so there's airline right there. Flag. And so then you can launch the app again by clicking on. And so there are startup icons and things like that that you can configure. Yep, hello world. Pretty easy. So that's your app. And so then as you're developing the app, what you'll do is you'll write some code and then redeploy it to the emulator and then interact with it. And that's how all of this works. So we're going to start on right now. We're going to start adding some things to the app to see how Android development works, and well, see how it works and get some experience doing so. Okay, let's take a tour of some of the code. Now, the emulator basically has like this big empty space that says "Hello World" on it. So in the screens of your Android application are things called activities. So the whole idea is that it is a screen that the user interacts with. And so the activity concept is reflected in the code also. So here we have a Java class called main activity, and this is the Java code, this is the class anyway, that backs this screen right here, this main activity. And so one of the things that Android does a nice job of doing is separating the behavior, the code, so that does work, into Java source code, and Java's good at doing things, right? It's a good language for that. And then for the visual layout, it uses XML to represent everything, which actually XML itself is kind of ugly to read. However, it's a nice standard, and it's actually way nicer to have that visual configuration, a visual layout in an XML file than it is Java code. So and so therefore every activity has an XML file associated with it, which specifies the layout for that activity. And in Android Studio, the way you navigate to that is by clicking on this little XML icon here in the margin. It talks about the manifest file, but more importantly, the layout file, which is activity_main.xml. Now, this file resides in a different section of the project. From a source code standpoint, you created an airline-android directory that contains the project. And inside here is an app directory that contains, well, the application itself. Actually, what else is in that? Right, Gradle files and stuff, yeah. And so then it's got here in the source directory, it's got unit tests and integration tests. We're not going to talk about that tonight. Then in the main, so this is Gradle's layout for files, which Android Gradle layout for files, which is a little different from Maven. But you've got things that are kind of familiar. You've got main Java code. So here's your main activity in there. And then you've got this res for resource. And resources, so much more so than in your command line programs, the Android applications rely on files that are external to the code. So, hey, you've got all of your graphics, you've got all these XML files that display that describe your layout, and actually it's got like different different things for different sized devices. I'm not going to go into the details right there. There's also it's also got and we'll see these shortly. It's also got a bunch of resource files for things like localizable strings or particular colors that you want to associate a name with. So you can in your program you can just call a color by its name, like background or dark background or something, and then you can change the style. But you can change the color in one place as opposed to having to change it all over the code. And we'll see all this stuff there. There's also something called Android Manifest, which is like your web XML, in that one, it configures the application, and B, it's not something you should have to mess with. Or if you do have to mess with it, then Android Studio will take care of it for you. But I mean, it's an Android. Sorry, it's an XML file with a lot of configuration about your application. It has things like, here's what my main activity is. Okay, it tells you what the target API is. That's nice to know. Things like that. Oh, you want to apply styles? Well, there's these things called themes, which are a little bit like CSS. So it's the same concept in that, yes, the same way. So actually, yeah, let's talk about that briefly. So there is the behavior, which is the code. There is the layout, which is that XML file, activity XML file, and then there's the styling, which is the theme. And it's very much akin to JavaScript and HTML and CSS. Okay, let's take a look at this. This activity main. So again, here you have the main activity. This is the logic behind it, which basically doesn't do much of anything. It's like, hey, listen, when this activity is created, meaning when it's displayed, then you have to go call the super on create, and then also say, hey, listen, my content, the thing that I'm displaying, is r.layout.activity.main. And this is, as you learn by the lecture, this is a reference to a resource called activity underbar main, and so you can navigate to it through this also. So this is an XML file that lays out the, I'll bring this up side by side here, that lays out this activity. And really, I mean, a lot of this stuff is sort of like boilerplate, and you have to do it. But here it is. You have a text view, and so this is a widget, a UI widget that displays the text "Hello World." That's what it does. Now, this is XML, and this is pretty structural. It's kind of hard to understand. So Android Studio not only lets you view the code, but then also allows you to, also gives you a design view. And so then let's zoom in on that. Oh, sorry, I may not zoom in that far. But as you can see, you've got like light mode and dark mode. But here is where you can lay things out. So we could say, we could change the contents of this. And so when you select a widget over here, you have all the attributes over there, and you can search for attributes. It's something I like to do a lot. So text, so instead of hello world, you can say hello class. So I change it here, it reflects it here in the design mode. And if we then go back to the code, it changes it in the code. which is nice. So we've made a change, and now we are going to we want to redeploy that. So we are going to say, yeah, let's just see. Let's see if we run the app. So now we've made the change. We want to basically rebuild the project and deploy it again to the emulator. That's okay. That's nice and fast. But not worried about using this emulator so much anymore. Now that I've turned it on. Whew. And now it says hello class. Oh, good. Way more readable up there. So that's sort of the development cycle, where it's like you change a little bit of stuff, and then you redeploy it, and then you try it out. Now, when I made that change, this got highlighted in yellow. And so I hover over it, and Android Studio is telling me hard code string hello class should use a string resource, and that's true. So you know, in your command line projects and everything, if you wanted to have like an error message that you display, you just wrote the text inside the Java code. It was like, not a big deal. It's a bigger deal for Android applications. Android Studio really pushes you towards best practices. It's a great way to learn them. And one of the best practices is that you shouldn't have string constants inside your XML. Instead, you should extract it out to a resource so that it can be localized, that is translated into a different language or a different locale. So it's got yellow, and so now if we do autocorrect, we can say extract string resource, and we'll just call it hello. And then, okay, the value, and it says, yep, put it in strings.xml. That's great. And now I've got a reference to a resource called @string/hello. And now I can navigate into that, and that'll take me to the strings.xml file. And now there is a string named hello with the value hello class. So it's just a nice way to affect your application so that you've got all these strings here so that you could translate them into a different language or just display them differently based on the locale that the phone is running in, or the user specifies. Okay. Any questions on that so far? This is something a little bit more interesting now. Let's add, oh, is there a question came in? What step required to extract? Sorry, what do you mean by extract exactly, Shriyoshi? The string. Oh, sorry, yes. So yeah, let me just undo that. Okay, so it's in yellow. So I did, well, okay, you can do the extract string resource from here, but what I did is I did more actions. I used the keyboard shortcut, which for me on my Mac is option return. So I did option return, extract string resource, and I followed the directions. This is basically a refactoring, right? I've refactored that code into a string resource. The header, which header do you mean? Yeah, that is, the string itself comes from this app name, and what I believe is happening is either this layout or something about just the app itself is using that. We can do a quick, we can do a quick search for app name and see if that gives us a clue. So find files. Oh, here we are in the Android manifest. We have the application itself has a label of app name, so maybe that's where it's coming from. When you create a project, and we saw this in the video, you can choose a style or template for your activities. I just chose like the simple basic one. That's what it came out with, but you know, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different ones. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to add a button to the UI. So, and see here, you can do this. You can add it in the XML, but hey, Let's see if we can use the designer to do that. So you can choose widgets over here. You can say a button. I think you can just drag and drop. Yep. Okay, so here is a button. And over here we have all of that. We'll say, we'll just say click me for the time being. Now, I'm going to deploy this really quick, and as we'll see, it'll look a little different from this, and we'll talk about why in a moment. So I've added a button widget on there, and actually, while it's not just really pretty quickly, I'll show you what it did in the XML here shortly. Okay. Here we have our hello, but the button was put all the way up here in the top left. Now, as I talk about in the lecture, when it comes to there's this whole hierarchy of widgets, and there are widgets that you can see, and then there's stuff you can't see, including the logic for laying out the widgets. So there's a whole separate part of a whole bunch of UI classes that basically determine how widgets are laid out with respect to each other. And so you'll see you can have things in a column, you can have things in a row, you can have things in different. There are all sorts of different options for that. Here, what we're going to do, and actually all that is described in the XML file. So as you can see, okay, we have our text view and then we have our button, and there's a red underline there saying that the view is not constrained. So this particular screen is using something called the constraint layout, where the whole idea is that each widget has describes has a layout is positioned relative to other components. So the text view here is saying, hey, listen, I am, the bottom constraint is constraining me to the bottom of the parent, et cetera, et cetera. This I find a little confusing. I think it's way easier to just work with this thing. And so I want to put it here, so sort of below the hello world, or the hello class. Oops. And so I always find it's a little difficult to use. So we're going to do this. Yeah, kind of then. Oops. It's not exactly what I wanted, but then actually that's okay. And then if I, whoops. Hello. Did I break something? I might break something. What did I do? Okay, yeah, now it's I don't want absolute X right here. Can I see it again? No, I don't know. And then I want this to the bottom. This, and I want this centered. It still has some problems. So what does it say? For me, the layout tends to be like the trickiest thing. I wonder if I need to have like layout selection right. I very well may. There. Oh, now it's only got a warning, so that's good. Oh, up another place where I need to extract the text. Okay. And then we'll say, actually, I'm not ready to do that yet, because I'm going to change this later. But anyway, again, the UI, the Iterative is giving you feedback about what's good and what's not good, right? And so the fact that it underlined that in red actually was a pretty good hint that, like, hey, when you deploy it, it's not going to look the way you think it's going to look, because you hadn't set up all the constraints yet. So we will run this again. Nice. Now you've got a button here. Now, if I click the button, nothing happens. Okay, so now let's make something happen on the button. So one of the properties of buttons is, I believe it's called onClick. OnClick. So we have the XML that that describes the widgets and lays them out in the activity. And then we have the Java that does the work. And one of the things one of the kinds of work that can be is responding to a click. And the way you associate the two is through the on-click attribute of the button. And so on click, I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna have it display a message. And oops. Oh, I thought it let me create that. Maybe we can go back to that. There you go. Okay. So I've said, hey, listen, on click, call the display message method. And Android Studio is telling me, it's like, listen, I don't know what the display message thing is, and it's saying that there is not a method on the main activity called display message. That's true, I haven't created it yet. So I will have Android Studio create it for me. So now I've got a method here that will be invoked when I click my button. A display message takes an argument which is an instance of a view, which will be the button that's passed in. And so then if you need to interact with a widget that's being clicked on, this is how you would do it. In this case, we don't. In this case, all we're going to do is pop up a little message, something called a toast, that tells you something. So toast, yep. Okay, so there's a class called toast in Android, and you can display a little piece of text, and we'll display it relative to this activity. And the text will be, hello everyone. And it can either be a short or a long toast, and that's fine, and then we will show it. So this is the action that we perform in response to the button click. So now let's deploy again and see this in action. And fundamentally, this is what you do in Android programming. You have a visual layout, and then you, when the user interacts with those widgets, then you respond to that action in code, in Java in this case. And you tie all this stuff together with the XML files. I think it might have reloaded again. So click on Click Me. Oh, and sure enough, there it is. The little toast popped up and said, hello, everyone. It was kind of quick. Okay, this is good. This is how you interact, right? So again, the button it does something, and you pop it up. Okay, I'm going to commit this code because I've gotten some stuff. That's good. So let's see here. Added a simple button that displays a toast. Please commit and push it to GitHub. And this is all in my Portland State Java Winter 2023 repository, and so feel free to reference that if it helps you in your assignment. Now let's see here. What do I want to do next? Okay, the next thing. Okay, so very simple example here. As you'll recall in the assignment, your code will need to, well, your code needs to reference my abstract classes, just like you did in Project 1, right? Your flight is a subclass of my abstract flight. You'll have the airline dumper and the airline person, all that kind of stuff in there too. So you need to have my code. Now, for the projects, the projects that were created with Maven, the crate script, when you ran that, had set up the project so you already have the dependency. When you create a project through Android Studio, it's not going to have that dependency out of the box. You'll need to add it. And here's how we add it. So in the app build.gradle, we'll have to add something. So now let's go find that. App build.gradle. This is a Gradle file. This is the configuration for Android. And in the dependencies section, that's where I can put about old stuff. I don't know what's about. A newer version is available. Yeah, maybe later. In the implementation section, we'll add a new thing. And oh, look at that! PDFs gave us fancy quotes. We'll get rid of those. So this is basically putting making dependency of your project on my my jar file, my project's jar file, which is the thing that contains all the abstract classes. So let's see here. I added that, and I didn't notice. Did Gradle go ahead and reload things? I can't tell. Is it still syncing? It doesn't look like it, but let's see. Okay, so I added that. So what I want to change my activity to, instead of printing hello everyone, I want to print out a flight's toString. And so I will create I'll create a class called flight. I'll put it here in my package in the source. Great. Yes, please put it in good. And I want to have this extends abstract flight. Oh, it looks like it doesn't have it yet. So I'm going to tell Gradle to synchronize itself. Let's see, how do I sync Gradle?
There is a sync now button.
Oh, sorry. Is there a sync there?
In the left.
In the Gradle.
Left side.
Oh, sync now. Yeah, there it is. Okay, it was so nice of it. Yeah, Gradle files. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I was expecting it to work more like Maven. Okay, so now it is syncing. It's great. So it's building things again, and it's going through and analyzing everything. And it was nice of it to tell me I should have seen it. I wasn't expecting it. You know, Android Studio works a little differently in places. That's what it was doing. Okay, so it sunk that, and now it's indexing some things. So it's still going through. It says it still can't find it. That's kind of surprising. Oh, probably because I haven't imported it, though. Yep, now I can import it. Yay, okay, good. I imported it, and now I can implement the methods, all this great stuff. So the number will be, 42, and it'll go from PDX to Las Vegas. Oh, departure string. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, this is the time. Sorry. March 7th, 2022 at 6:20 p.m. See ya. And then destination, going to Vegas, and we'll get there tonight at 11 p.m. Great. Oh, one other problem. Oh, yeah, okay. So anyway, so I just created a flight class real quick. Before I could do that, I needed to add the implementation dependency so you could use the library. You will have to do the same. That's why I'm showing it to you, because you'll copy in your code, and it'll be like, I don't know what you have a flight class that extends abstract flight. I don't know anything about this abstract flight. And so what you need to do is add that implementation dependency, and then sync your Gradle. Now I can create a flight object. And I can put flight.toString here. Let's use a long toast. Now we're going to run it. Nope, that's what we got to get. So it's still running Gradle build. Yeah, the duration of it's, it's, I think you can put in specific milliseconds. It's just, I think, probably easier to put in, use these constants. And actually, that way, it allows the phone to determine, and also, the device to determine, which might be important for like accessibility and things like that. Someone might have the phone configured to like, hey, just use a bigger font, or just display things at a different pace. So now when you click me, there it is. It is the toString of a flight. So what this demonstrates is that your Android application is now able to use my code, right? The stuff from abstract flight. How are y'all doing? Is this making sense? Too fast, too slow? Okay, yeah, okay. Folks who are remote, and they're not falling asleep. Dependency on my code, so see something came in the chat. Couple things in the chat came in. So far, so good. You to Android, yeah, totally, yeah. But here again, what I hope is familiar is first of all Java syntax, using APIs, and then using the tool. Right, that's the nice thing about Android Studio, and yet another reason why I like using Delegate for the rest of the course is that this stuff I seem pretty familiar. Okie dokie. Okay. Okay, let's expand this a little bit. Yeah, let's add a couple more widgets to see how to interact with text fields. So I'm going to go back to my activity. I'm going to go back into design mode. I'm going to move this around a little bit because it's kind of hard to read. Let's just move this stuff up. And yeah, put this kind of more in the center of the screen. This one will give it the hello class. So, yeah, how about it? Hello class. Just delete that, and then what happens? All these other things break. Never mind. That's messed up. Oops. Okay. Okay. So now here, instead of just click me, I want to have a new container, and I want to have it's called a horizontal. Let me scroll view. I just want a layout. Yeah, I just want a linear layout horizontal. Okay, and now I want to put some stuff in it. That's super good. I'm just going to put a couple of text fields in it. So let's see here. As you can see, there's all sorts of different kinds of text like date and time and stuff like that. I just want something simple though. Yeah, I'm just going to do. Actually, I'm just going to do plain text. Question came in. We use form fields for adding the flight info. Is there a way to save the previous values like in the browser? Easier to retest or add flights without filling out everything. Yes, there is. And actually, I think if you just save them in Java fields in your activities, it should come back. There's also ways of, and I cover this all in the lecture, to serialize it out to those objects of intent. What are they called? I forget. Yeah, but the answer to your question, Max, that yes, you can persist either on disk or just like leave it in memory field values in between as you're moving around from different activities. So let's see here. Oh, more questions. Nice. Yeah, and definitely check out the lectures. Honestly, like between now and probably Saturday night, that's what you should be focusing on. Is just if you haven't read the lectures, if you haven't done the lectures already, if you haven't looked at setting things up, just as soon as possible, make sure that you can develop on your laptop. You don't want to save that until the end because hey, if it's 5 days before the assignment's due and you haven't realized that your laptop isn't hefty enough to run Android Studio, or you're running on some version of Linux that isn't supported very well for Android Studio, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, so name. I'm going to want that. So okay, so here we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little calculator program. So bear with me as I lay things out. Okay, so there's going to be, I'm going to have one text field, which is the left operand. And then, let's see here, I want to make that, oops, rename. And then I want to say width. Max width. Actually, can I make that more narrow here? Is that a thing I can do? No. What I really want to do is this a linear layout. It's gonna work with anymore. Well, okay, so it looks like I need to make it horizontally constrained first. Come on. Huh, I wonder why. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? This is one of the times where I don't think the layout is being helpful, so I'm going to delete that. Really? Android Studio, don't like it anymore. Where did I change? It's going to revert all this stuff, so hopefully it goes back to like being renderable. There we go, great. Okay, so I'm going to add, I guess, right here. Here I'm going to add a linear layout, and width will wrap content, meaning that it'll fit whatever inside it. And same thing with height, I guess. Yeah. And it's probably complaining that it's not constrained yet. Yes. So we'll go for 0, 0, which it did before. Okay, so let's add some constraints. Linear layout. Oh, there's nothing in it. Okay, that's why I'm not seeing. Okay, so let's put some stuff in it. And inside it, I'm going to have a text view here, and I want it to, again, wrap the content, the height, shore match parent. That'll be okay. And let's see here. I think I can also say, what do we got for width? Width, and let's make this, well, I don't know, 10 pixels. Yeah, let's make it 2 points instead. Let's make it 4 point. Meaning that it's 4 characters wide, essentially. And let's see how this looks. Pretty crappy. So can I make it a little bigger so I can work with it? Come on. There we go. So put that there. Put that there. Put that, oops. Okay. Fine. There we go. Put that there. Actually, I guess I want to rotate to this. Okay. And then put this. Some color. Wow, I'm just not happy with how this is turning out. What is it saying? Oh, I didn't save anything over there. Edit with layout height. Let's just make it a lot smaller. There we go. I don't know how that gets so messed up. Okay, and then let's put some, there's supposed to be a text widget there. So let's put, oh, the ID, and we're going to call this again, background. And then let's, the text, it's just question mark. Let's see that now. All right. There we go. Oh, that one. That is everything. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. So anyway, as you can see, you kind of need to play with it a little bit to get the things that you want. So then let's put some more stuff in there. How come it's not saved? Oh wait, there it is. Text view. Oh, okay. It didn't actually put that into the Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it didn't put it into the linear layout like I wanted it to, so I'm just going to then put a linear layout around it. And let's see here. Layout, and we got content, I'm going to use these layout constraints, and I think that'll be okay. And then inside that, now I'm going to put this text view. I don't do all this. Now let's see how that looks. Okay, not awful. This is way too big. What's going on? Okay. Huh. That's a little different than I expected. Okay. And, well, let me just, and this is the thing, you'll spend like way too much time sort of messing with the layout, and then you'll finally get something that looks good, and then you can start writing code again. Okay, that looks like what I expect. Okay, great. So now I'm going to add some more stuff to that linear layout. I'm going to add. Then I'm going to add another text view, which will be. Do I need? Yeah, I'll just call this. I'll call it plus, because it's going to add two numbers together. So actually, it's and put that, and we'll call this. Well, actually, no, we don't need initial text. Okay. And then we'll have the right operand, and then we'll have a button. And then the button's text is going to be equals. This is the thing that we'll click on to perform it. And then let's see how it's looking. Awful. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's because this thing doesn't have. Wow, it is temperamental. I don't remember it being that temperamental in the past. This thing does not have left and right constraints, so let's give it some left and right constraints. See more of it. Constrain to end top ID vertical bias. That's a weird one. I don't think I want that. No, let's use that one with vertical bias also. Same top. Let's see here. So let's see what happens there. So the top is the top of parent, the end of parent. Well, like that. The bottom of let's see here. Bottom, start, end of, and top, start, end. Start, end, bottom, top. So the button, and then the top of the, yeah, let's see how that looks. Let's look at it. I wonder why those don't. Maybe you don't want web content. Maybe you want transparent. But not just going to make a difference. That actually make a difference. This. There you go. Nice. That's looking a little better. But now these are too wide. And so then Anyway, sorry, we're not getting to the interesting part, which is accessing these fields inside the Java code. So maybe using the wrong widget here. Maybe we shouldn't do text widgets. There's text view. So what is, actually, let's use a number instead. So let's see here. I'm going to just change that to a number instead of a text. Let's just use a number. Okay. Oh, actually, a number will be, no, a number is what I want. It is, I believe, what you get here is, so let's put another number in here. Yeah, edit text number. There we go. One. Where's this thing now? And we're saying that inefficient layout with pick badge for default. Okay. Oh, for details, right? So this is all the things it doesn't like. Inefficient. Oops. There we go. Inefficient layout widget. It explains to you what's there. Okay. Use a layout of 0 DP instead of wrap content for better performance. Sure. Will this fix it for me? Yes. Does that help? Use autofill. Okay, so it's a default value. And hardcode text, hardcode text, hardcode text, hardcode text. Security label. The array operand is partially hidden in layout. And all it's telling me to do is ignore it. Well, I wanted to see it. Because look, it sends all the way over there. So why are these so wide? You're going to need to explicitly set this to something a little better, like 20. Okay, it's a little better. So, yes, I mean, I thought I was doing that, but clearly I wasn't. So let's make this 30 points. Now let's go to 50 so we can get a little bit more. Oh, I should, yeah. So like max parent, that's too big, and wrap content, that's too small. Okay, interesting. If we and then this one, I want it to be just off. Okay, now things look a little better. Okay. Okay, compute button. That's wrap content. So if we go width, match parent, yeah, that's what you did. Wrap content. Okay. And then, okay, so this is looking a little better. Okay, so now this one's, oh, definitely. Oh, interesting. So like if I make it 0 DP, does it then, no, okay. So anyway, but this is what I want. I want that edit number text. I like this thing a lot better. It looks, just edit instead of just being plain text. So now I'll go over here and I will replace left operand. So where is the edit text? Oh, yeah, it's complaining about something. Yeah, okay. So this is, notice this edit text has an input type of number. This is what I wanted before. I want this to be the left operand. Sorry, I was just using the wrong left operand there. I'm going to get rid of this one. And have a plus, and then I'm going to create, replace this edit text view with edit text, and edit text of input type number. Input type number. Let's see here. Okay, oh, that's weird. Okay, these are just different. Okay, so then 0 DP and wrap content. 0 DP and wrap content. Let's see what that looks like. Oops, how come that one is super tiny? Oh, like what exactly? I did not know that. Nice. So then, okay. Okay, well, at least now this isn't super ugly. But 0 dp, and then the, sorry, and then the weight you said? Layout weight. Oh, that's what that means. Okay, yeah. So like we want this to be 0.5, that's half. Okay. I guess that's kind of neat. Okay, let's see. Okay, and then I want one more widget, which is, let's not do it as a text. Let's, actually, no, let's have it be a number. And we'll call this sum. And this would be number, but this would be like, you know, editable. This is one edit text. Oh, let's leave it that way. Okay, so now, okay, whew, that was pretty awful. Okay, so now I've got some widgets here that I can play with. Let's run the emulator and see what happens. Okay, great. We've got some fields, and now I can put numbers in here. Like 34. I cannot type the letter D though. Great, but now nothing happens. So what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to put in a number here, put in a number here, click equals, and have the sum appear over there. That's what we're going to do next. But first, we're going to commit this code because it finally looks decent. So let's see here. Add calculator widgets. Okay. Okay. Nice. Okay. So we spent way too much time laying out some widgets, but what do we got? We've got these two edit texts. And by the way, I assigned IDs to these. So the widgets, some widgets have like an identifier that allows you to access the widget in code. And so then we're going to do that now. So here in our main activity, I guess the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a listener on the button. And so let's see here, that's the easiest way to do that then, on the plus button. So we'll say on click. Oh, I think it's deprecated. Okay, interesting. We'll say compute sum. And we'll create that method in main activity. So this is when the button is clicked. So when that button is clicked, we want to display the sum. So what we need to do is we need to get the value that's in the left operand, the value of the right operand, and compute their sum, and then write it back to the sum field right here. So the way you reference those fields is you say get view. No, you say get view. Well, actually, you would say, let's see here, they're both edit text, and so you'd say left operand equals get. What am I missing? The text. Find view by ID. There we go. I don't know why it's that. Find view by ID. And then you say, there's this magical class called R that we used up here for r.layout. There's also an r.id. And then you can say left operand. Now, this is a magical class that's created by the runtime compiler from all of the IDs that are, sorry, the Android compiler, that is with all the IDs here in your XML file. And so you can reference it there and you can get the widget. And what you get back is an object of type edit text. So underneath, underneath all these XML files actually represent a bunch of Java objects that are available to your activities at runtime. So there's the left operand, and then we'll do the same for the right operand. Okay, and now we can get the value. So left operand string is left operand dot get text dot toString, and then we'll do the same thing for the right operand. And then we will compute the sum. So we'll turn them both into integers. And so we'll call it left. Well, okay, we'll call this left operand edit text. Call that right operand edit text. And we'll call it left operand, it's going to be a string, more to be an int. Operand equals integer.parsent. Oops. And the nice thing about Android is that you have the entire Java API available to you, almost all of the entire Java API available to you in your code. So this part should all be very familiar, right? By now, you should all know how to convert a string to an integer. Parsent of right operand. Now we're going to compute the sum. And then we're going to get the sum field, sum edit text. Find the ID of r.id.sum. And again, you can navigate back to the XML just by clicking there. That's the nice thing about the tool. And now we're going to write that value, sum edit text dot set text buffer type. I don't even know what that is. Set variable, set text to be string dot value of sum and buffer type. I don't even know what that is. Buffer type. Editable. Oh. Okay. We'll see what that does. So, oops, that is not right. Do that. So basically what we're doing here is we're writing Java code that interacts with the stuff, the contents of your UI of the Android application, perform some logic on it. So it takes some stuff as input, the left operand and the right operand, text edit text as input, gets that data, and then computes the sum of those two things, and then displays the sum by setting the value of this other edit text object. Okay, so here again, 1, 2, when we click equals, oops, something blew up. What did it like? Okay, now I'm going to run it into the debugger because I might have messed something up. So you can, another nice thing about Android Studio and Android is that it has great debugger support. So you can launch the app in debug mode and then attach to it with this right here. Now, if I click equals, I don't think that's hooked up correctly. That might explain it. So it must not like my on-click method. So then, I wonder if I put it on the wrong thing. Where's the on-click? equals. Oh yeah, I put it on the plus, didn't I? That would do it. Put it on the wrong one. It's the equals that I want to say. I will launch it in the debugger. Okay, 1, 2 equals. Aha! And I hit the breakpoint in the debugger. So let's just walk through this and let's see what it's doing. Okay, so we get these two objects. And okay, there's all of this crazy information about those objects. That's very nice. We'll get strings. Okay, there's a string 1, a string 2. We will turn them into integers. We'll compute their sum. The sum is 3. We'll get the other thing. We will set its text. It's all happy, so we will continue. And sure enough, now we have 3 there. So what this demonstrates is the pattern of providing input into an Android application, doing something with that input, and then displaying output. It's different than the code that you have been writing, in that you've got this object that's sort of created once, and then its methods are called depending on what the user does. So it means it's very different from the command line program, where it's like you have to provide the input once, and then it all flows through it, and then it's done. It's much more like a servlet, in that this code sort of stays running. This object is active until somebody from the outside does something with it. Okay. Any questions about that? I got one more thing I want to show you tonight. So let's do this. Read in the values from the text fields and compute some. Yeah. Life cycle, yeah. Yeah, so the question is, in Android, and actually all small devices, there's real constraints on the CPU, on the memory, right? And so then there's really no guarantee about how long, there's no guarantee of like how long your app will be running. It might get killed at any time, et cetera, et cetera. It's really at the whim, the discretion of the operating system. What do you do if you're in the middle of doing something and it crashes? You might get a call back and be able to save some things, but here again, the operating system might not have a lot of patience with your app, so it might kill it harder. But I think realistically, in the real world, what happens is you need to be resilient to these things. Now, most apps are not, like generating a lot of data to the disk, or even just like sending, building a bunch of data and then sending it to someplace else. So I think it's fair to say the nature of most apps is that it's not where like the really like the entering code or the really heavy lifting is being done, because you're on a pretty small device. So then most of the time, I think basically making sure that you recover from whatever happens is probably the right tactic to take. Well, speaking of errors, oh, you know what? I guess I made these numbers. I guess I can't put in bogus stuff. Darn. I was going to show you. Well, let's. I was going to show you what happens when these are not numbers, or rather when you have when you have an invalid value put in. So let's see if I can change that. No, question first. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Devin, you have a question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so great.
Yeah. So I noticed can you pull up the Android thing again?
Yeah, the app. Yep. Sorry. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. So how like you're displaying the 3 there?
Yeah.
Is that a text field right there, or like you can just make that anything, right? It could be any.
It's another number.
Displayable text.
It's yeah. I chose a number for that, which sorry. It ends up being the sum field right here, which is
Okay.
an edit text of type number.
Okay, cool. So I could change that. It wouldn't have to be like a. Does it have to be like, because it looks like it has the underline there? Like, does that mean it's like a editable field or?
It's it's intended to be, yeah, and so probably you'd want to style it, or not so much style it, but I think there's a way to configure that these. So actually, yeah, edit text is probably not the right thing to use there. I was just simple. Let's see here. Who's had a text view? And I think we doesn't have input type. Right?
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of the airline app, like how we'd want to maybe display stuff. Just thinking about different styles of I can read up about the API, but anyways,
Yeah,
that
well,
was
now
my
I'm
question.
curious here. Yeah, so like, okay, now it's got one. So let's just see what happens now. I'll read it for you. Yeah, I don't know. Visually, it doesn't necessarily look as good, but so now 3 plus, oops, 4. Oh, I probably got class cast exception. How would I know that? Ugh. So this is the log viewer for Android. Oh, I get it. I was expecting. Oh, it crashed. Well, that would explain it. So yeah, the app crashed, and let's see if you do that again. So 3 plus 4 equals crash. Okay, and it goes, well, oh, it keeps crashing. You want to close the app? Yeah, I want to close the app. Now the reason it crashed is got a class cast exception, but like, how would I know that? Class cast. There it was. Okay, so then if I search for exception, that's a good thing to search for. Java colon is the stack trace. Yep, here it is. So I got a class cast exception, and there's a couple causes here, and as you can see, main activity 36. So you want to click into that, and sure enough, oh, he's even underlining it because it knew, yeah, that that it was a text view. So I should change this then. Oops. Can I? It doesn't give me a nice. Okay. Fix text view like that, and then it's with the same set text. Different set text without that variable. It does. I'm just going to use this instead. Okay, so now try it again. Oh, interesting. Okay, because I killed it, I have to rerun it. I can't just redeploy it, so it's going to take a little longer. Or not. Okay, so now if I have 3 plus 4 equals 7, that's kind of hard to read, so you need to lay things out a little bit differently. Now, what I also want to change then is I want those edit texts, I don't want them to be constrained to numbers because I want to show how we can deal with errors. So I need to go here and I need to go back to my code. And I don't want to, actually, what are my other types? Input type none, input type text. Yeah, I'll just do that. Right operand then is also text. So we run one more time, and yeah, we'll be taking a break soon. So I'm almost done here showing things I want to show off tonight. Oh, you're welcome, Devin. Yeah, no, this is not intuitive, and yeah. So 2 plus 22 plus 33 equals 5. And now I think I should be able to put in something like this. And now if I do equals, it crashed because I got a number format exception when I went to call those. So what we need to do, well, we need to catch these. So we're going to put those in try catch blocks by making that, and then we're going to catch the number format exception. And if we get one of those, then we will make a toast. and say invalid number. Yeah, actually, we'll just say left operand string, and then return, because we don't want to process anything else. We can't. And then similarly, we want to do the same thing for right operand. Actually, maybe what we should do then is just turn this into a method. And no, because we can't return. Never mind. We will just copy that. We will split this into declaration and assignment. We will do that. We will take that. We will do that. We're good now. Cool. So now we're just bulletproofing our code, but this shows how you can handle errors in Android, right? You get an exception, just like you would in any Java code. What do you do? Well, you put a hopefully understandable error message up and then return from handling this. Basically, you can't handle the input anymore. So now, what is this all about? That's interesting. Okay. Plus 2 is 3, but 1 plus W. So invalid number 1. Great. Okay. So again, here's how this is Java code, right? But what you're doing is you're interacting with these Android APIs to do things like, hey, get me the widgets that are in my UI. You can call methods like, hey, get me the contents of those widgets. Then you can do Java stuff like you've been doing since week 1, and then you do a little bit more Android stuff. And this is why, and so I hope that you're seeing this like, great, there's some stuff that's brand new, but there's some stuff that's familiar also. That's why I feel it's kind of appropriate to put it all into the course, because much of it ought to be things that you're familiar with. Okay. Cool. This question come in. So, second one would need to be right operand string. Oh, did I? Oh, thank you. So good. Okay. Best commit message ever. Other than that, well, fix bug. This would be the other commit message. Sweet, thanks for catching that. So I think that's all the Android that I wanted to cover for tonight. This is scratching the surface, but I hope it's also sort of whet your appetite to go explore some other things in the Android API, because there's a whole bunch of stuff out there, in Android Studio, and thinking about how you'll start in on your program. Next week we'll see some more stuff. Talk about activities next week, but I think this is probably plenty for right now. After break, we will do our mob program exercise, but is there anything else that people are wondering about for Android? Yeah. If not, let's take 15 minutes. Been a long haul, and then we'll come back and do some mob programming. Okay, we're back. That was a lot of Android, and now let's do some mob programming. Looks like we've got a good contingent here in the classroom. We've got 7 people on the Zoom, and so then we'll do one breakout room. That's fine. Tonight we are working on a kata called the RPN Calculator. I will post the kata here in the Zoom chat for everybody who's on Zoom. Otherwise, there's a link to it on the course website. I don't know if you're familiar or not with reverse Polish notation, also referred to as postfix notation, in that it's a calculator and the operator follows, is after the operands. So in reverse Polish notation, you have the first operand, the second operand, and then the operator. So this is the way of expressing 20 divided by 5. and then the result of that expression is 4. In this kata, you'll be implementing one of these, and so I think this is another great example of doing another great kata for exploring test-driven development. But also in the mob, it'll be maybe take the first round or so to talk about the approach, especially if someone has some familiarity with this or has some ideas of how they might implement it. It talks about you have the standard 4 functions for arithmetic, and there's also more advanced things like the unary square root operator, and then the max operator or operation. I guess also are things that you can implement tonight. Let's see here. Before we talk about the IntelliJ stuff, while I get my IntelliJ open, any questions about the kata itself, in terms of sort of what's expected or what you'll need to provide? Nope. Okay. Well, if you open up the Kata's Winter 2023 repository, this is the repository that we've all been sharing for the pair programming and the mod programming work. I have created a bunch of projects in the RPN calculator. We'll choose 2 of them. I'll be room 1 for the people who are on Zoom, and then people in the physical classroom can choose whichever one they want. And it's got the standard stuff, right? It's got the there is a main class and then a unit test. Again, I encourage you to use some test-driven development on this one. So I'll put stuff over here. And that's it. So I'm going to try. I think we can create a breakout room, just one breakout room. Yeah, we can. And I'll let people choose because I don't know who's here and who's not, but just go to the one breakout room. We'll do that for the people who are remote. Any questions? No? Okay, let's go do it. We will check back in. I'll start pinging people like in an hour. We'll see how far we can get in an hour, and let's try to be out of here by 9. Sweet.
Okay. So I want to hear about your experiences, mod programming. Could someone in the room join the Zoom, please? And then you can all huddle around. We'll have people in the room go first so they already got the headset on, so then the audio oughtn't echo. Yeah, well, they're getting set up. It was really interesting for me to observe. Luckily, there was only 2 mobs, and so it was much easier for me to sort of look over people's shoulders. And I'm curious to hear how this experience contrasts with the one last week. That you've had some experience under your belt. How this one was the same. How this one was different. Still waiting for someone to join. Probably should have done that before I started the recording again. Not that anybody watches this part of the recording anyway, right? Okay, yep, someone's joining. Great. Oh yeah, look at that. It's a great. This is multi-factor authentication. Look at everybody's face. There you go. So yeah, here in the classroom, like there was this rumble because some idiot's got his like very fancy yet loud car out front here in the. Thank you for asking him to turn it off. Seriously, it's still there though. It's been there for like a half an hour. Okay, it's a rough neighborhood, man. It's gonna get vandalized. Okay. Hey. Yeah. How about you unmute David and then let's see here. Okay. Excellent. So I'm gonna mute.
So so tell me about your experiences. Here in the room, there were people who were new to mob programming in person. I don't know if you done before last week, and it's people who were returning. What was it like?
I liked it a lot better than being remote. It was easier, like feeling more connected to what was going on, and felt like I had more of a say, I guess, because it's easy to be like outspoken by like people if they're in person and you're remote, because like they're kind of right there and they like, it's much more, what they say has much more impact than if you're remote, I feel like.
Yeah, this was my first time like in general or mob programming, and thought it was good. It took a second to kind of get into the flow of things, like how the driver navigator worked, but overall it was good. It was interesting to work collaboratively like that in a group. So
I'm just putting you on.
oh.
How was this different from last week? And was there anything noticeably either about the kata or about the way you approached it or the way the mob worked?
I think we had a lot more experience the second time around. Last week was a little bit chaotic. Just more experience with the mob programming.
Yeah, I mean, adding on that is because getting to know each other better and like how they work, and then getting the dynamics. So know when to like let them do it, trust them, trust your teammates to get stuff done. I think, yeah, just team dynamics.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Excellent. How did you find the kata? Was it like
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed you did that one first. I noticed that you had some events.
Yeah, we almost had the last one. We spent a bit of time like trying to figure out the best way to move forward with implementation. So we got stuck in the details. But we were pretty close last week.
Anything else that you want to share? Any other observations?
I could see like how if you're on like a software development team, how like as you continually do mob programming, like you could like the process would get a lot more efficient, because even just like within this session, I feel like we built up momentum, and towards the end, like we had a much better like.
That's a good
flow, I
point.
guess.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely effective to do on the team.
Thanks.
Yeah, maybe realize like learn what people are good at, and even like decide who's the navigator and driver based on maybe some of that, like what people have experience with.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing. And then there's the remote room. So can you lead Zoom, please, David?
Oh yeah, prevent the echo chamber.
You're still muted, David, if you're talking to us.
I think your actual Zoom.
Yeah, just the Zoom's muted.
Yeah, how did I
Yeah.
get muted there? I'm not sure. Okay. Sorry. How did your experiences compare and contrast to last week, and both in terms of the group dynamics and just the kata itself?
One thing that this is my own personal thing that I viewed, which last week in the group that I was in, we didn't keep track of time very well. And this time there's times when we let things go on kind of a long time, but I think it's when we were making kind of good progress in that current form. But we changed a lot this time. Everyone got a chance to kind of be in the seat, including myself, which I don't usually like driving, but I'll do it.
Nice. Others, what are your observations?
Well, I didn't do last week's, but compared to like the pair programming, which felt a little slower for me to get into, this time I felt like we just kind of hit the ground running and we jumped right into it super quickly. I feel like we stumbled a little bit in the beginning, but the moment somebody mentioned a stack and the comparison of that to the problem, it just started to, like, I felt like we just started to fly through through all the test cases and building it. And applying the TDD TDD to it as well also is just really nice. It just made doing it just as easy.
Observations. Others.
This time the problem was a lot easier than the previous one.
Yeah, good to know. I think both mobs got almost done, if not all the way done. So good. I'm glad. Excellent. Anything else people would like to contribute?
I think it's a little fast paced, like compared to pair programming, because like there's like 7 different people and there's like new ideas thrown like every like 2 minutes. So yeah, for it almost felt I almost felt it was a little bit hard to keep up, but yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah, I can imagine it can get a little bit more intense, especially like, yeah, if you're feeling behind and everybody else appears to be charging ahead. That's a good point. I can't really think of like sort of a protocol. And so maybe it's something that the mob can come up with a working agreement of like, hey, listen, how do I pull the cord, stop the presses, and say, wait, I need to check for understanding or need to check for alignment or something. It's all remote, yeah. Can't read people's body language either. The person that's kind of like, or yeah, falling asleep or whatever. Okay, good to know. Yeah. Excellent. Anything else? Well, we've got one more opportunity to pair program next week. Next week will be similar to this week. We'll start out with doing some more Android. There's some more things that I want to demonstrate for the class, and then we'll spend the second half doing another one. I believe I checked and it was Minesweeper, so it'll be something a little bit more interesting in terms of a fun problem to work out. Thanks for joining tonight, everybody. This was good. Appreciate the time and everything. Have a great week. Stay safe. I'll reach out on Slack, and I'll see you again in 7 days. Bye now.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.